Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Raad Life. Today, I have a guest with me that very positive messaging usually. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest, Nada Nasruddin, and I want to see if she is there. Nada, are you there? Nada, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, Nada. How are you?
Very good. How are you today?
I'm good. I was just saying we're very lucky to catch you because you just finished a 2-hour thing with one OC.
Yes.
So how did that go?
It went very well. Thank you. It was awesome. We had about 60 professionals from the nonprofit space come and just learn more about how to work remotely and how to lead as well remotely. So
it's interesting because for me, I've been remote working. It's like, we got to work remotely. I'm like, I've been doing this for 20 years. What's the big deal of this?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
and I forget that a lot of people don't, and this is sort of their first foray into it.
Yes.
So what we take for granted in terms of the tools of the trade, if you will, by working remotely, these are new things for people. And you know what? It didn't even dawn on me because I do volunteer and I'm involved on a lot of boards, but it didn't even dawn on me that the nonprofit world is equally in that situation. Because it's so one-on-one, it's so, caregiver to end user. And now all of a sudden you're going to have to not just work organizationally remotely, but how do you continue to provide your much needed civic, nonprofit services to the community that way? So that's interesting. Did they record it by any chance?
They did record it, and I believe they're going to be releasing it soon. And then I could pass it on to everyone as well to share.
Yeah, that would be wonderful too, because I know of a couple of boards that I think I would want to send that to.
Thank you.
So again, thanks for joining us. Why don't you take a minute and tell people about yourself and what you do when you're not basically, saving the nonprofit world from its lack of remote work experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. So as mentioned, my name is Nada Lena Nasruddin, and I'm the founder of Rise It For You. And I'm honored to say that basically our mission in our company works with companies and professionals to enhance company culture and develop through soft skills development. So in short, what that means is people skills. Mm-hmm. So really the skills that make up about 80% of our success as an individual and within an organization. This is what we're really fostering.
And how like give an example of some of your clientele so far before like this whole, I mean, obviously we're in a weird situation right now. We're probably going to be in it for a few months. Yep. So it provides both opportunities and retooling, et cetera. We'll talk more about that, but give an idea of what your typical client base is.
Yeah, so we have two types of clients right now. We have the corporate space where we work with small, medium, and large companies and come in and help enhance their culture through these skills. Mm-hmm. So everything from diversity and inclusion, emotional intelligence, effective leadership, how to communicate across the new generations that are in the workforce. So this is just one example. And then the other side is the individual that's looking for personal and professional growth. So how to be a better leader, how to build career confidence, next steps within their career. And so we get the honor of working with both specifically with these skills. And now more than ever, as you can see, we need them because a part of soft skills is adaptability, creativity, productivity, intrinsic motivation, everything that we're kind of dealing with right now at home as we work remotely.
And what are you seeing? I mean, it's only been 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on when you started sequestering. What are you seeing in terms of a shift from what you were experiencing, let's say, in a joint work environment to where now it is basically a remote work environment? Somebody told me the other day that, Zoom is basically both their break room and their boardroom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And their browser is basically their cubicle. So, I mean, the environment has changed. They're still engaging with their, fellow workers if they're still employed by the company. What are you seeing that you're seeing as different now that we're going through this?
Well, I hate to say it because we're in a pandemic and, obviously my heart goes out to that. But what I'm really seeing is, now this mindset of being proactive instead of reactive. And I think people are starting to get that where, sometimes we are in a reactive mode where we don't have adaptability. We don't use that creative muscle. We're not thinking outside the box because we don't need to. And now we're in a world, the whole entire world is in a place where we have no choice but to do that. We have to think outside of the box when it comes to leading and working with our teams. We have to think outside of the box in regards to generating new income. We have to think outside of the box in regards to our product and our services. And I think that that's what people are starting to do and really enhance. And, you know, it's interesting because before COVID-19, there was so much talk about artificial intelligence.
Right.
It's like, how are we going to adapt to this? You know, what are we going to do when so much becomes automation and we have to work remotely? And little did we know that a pandemic would come through and basically do the same thing, where we are all forced to really rethink what the workspace looks like.
You know, a gentleman that I know posted something today that I found very funny. He said, the question was, you know, what caused the biggest shift in technology adaptation? And there was three, like A, B, and C to pick from. And the first one said CEO. The next one said CTO, Chief Technical Officer. And then the third one said COVID-19. And COVID-19 was circled. To your point, yes, it was which, you know, sometimes in the course of human history, that is what happens. You have a situation that pushes you beyond the pace that you would have selected, the path that you would have taken. With that being said, and I think you raise a very interesting point about this sort of need for creative thinking and innovation, because whereas that may have been allocated or assigned as a job description for somebody in the organizational structure before, it now is almost part and parcel of everybody's job description.
Yes. Yes. And I think that this is what I like to call career resilience, right? It's like, you know, some people are going to take this opportunity and they're going to soar with it, and they're going to fly with it, and they're going to stretch their muscle. And unfortunately, some people aren't going to be able to keep up, you know, whether they're not able to build the technical skills needed at a rapid pace before their company goes under. You know, hopefully that doesn't happen. And so this is really that resilience muscle that has to do with the professional space. I know a lot of times we think of resilience in regards to our personal life, but this is career resilience right here, is being able to quickly adapt. Because, you know, I think a couple weeks ago, we thought it was going to be 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. But I think we are quickly seeing that we're talking potentially months, and companies have to shift because they cannot go for months without having a plan and without using that creativeness as fast as possible.
Well, they don't have the resources. The sustainability is not there. I mean, everybody runs very, very tight on their everything from their financial resources to their capacity to their, you know, supply chain. So this is definitely putting a test to a lot of it. And it's interesting, the message that's starting to come out of this. I mean, when you're looking at even as simple as using of Zoom, okay, which is now has become almost like, you know, I literally turned it on like I basically brush my teeth. I mean, it's just like that for people now, right? So I think what's interesting is, whereas before you got on a conference call, you may have been on a conference call, even if you were using Zoom, and it was just audio, right?
Right.
So you may have been multitasking, doing a million other things while you were on that conference call, and nobody really had any clue that that's what was going on, right? Now, I think if you got on a conference call with people, because especially that you don't have that FaceTime with them in a work environment or a virtual network environment, chances are you're going to be expected that you are not going to be able to just do an audio, that you need to do basically video, unless, oh, darn, I didn't get a chance to buy that webcam before they ran out, which that was the most surprising thing for me when, yes, toilet paper was off the shelves and paper towels were off the shelf. And then I go to Staples and they're like, oh, yeah, no, the webcams went off the shelves faster than the toilet paper went off the shelves.
I believe it.
Right. If you did not buy a webcam the first 2 weeks, you are probably looking about a 3-week out on Amazon if you can find it. And it's probably about 2 or 3 times the price, right? I mean, right. So people now, just in terms of their behavior patterns, are having to adjust to what their expectations are, both in the workforce, and then also, you know, now I got to balance the fact that I am my kids' teacher, their PE teacher, the cafeteria lady, the life coach, everything, and then I got to find out a couple of hours where I can do work.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to come out of that, Nada? I mean, obviously, we won't be going back to any kind of what we're termed normal. It will be a new normal, right? What are you seeing?
Well, I'm hoping that what we see out of this is possibility, like people finally recognizing that the potential is infinite, because that's really what's happening right now is people are really needing, and I don't mean to be woohoo about it, but people are really needing to look inward to figure out like, what are the tools that I have that I can rely on myself.
Right.
And so like to your point about, you know, being a professional that's at home, or now you need to be like, you need to be the cafeteria lady, you need to be, or man, you need to be the PE teacher, you need to be the school educator, and you have to do your job, and you have to do A, B, C, and D. And now you have to come up with these resources and tools on your own. I mean, just something that clicked into my brain when you were speaking, for example, is working out, right? Where we have all these external resources originally,
right.
And now we have to figure out intrinsically, what do we have? So like the first 2 weeks, for example, I couldn't find weights anywhere. So I was grabbing honey jars and bean cans, whatever I can to maintain productivity. And I think to your point, this is where we're going to see, am I going to be a doer, right? Or am I going to let these obstacles get in the way and then just be someone that sits? So it's like, so no, you're going to figure out, how can I be the doer? What do I have right now in my house or in myself or with what's around me where I can be a doer and still be productive? And I'm hoping that this is where people, and I always talk about this, like being a potential seeker in yourself. I'm hoping that through this pandemic, people can start to recognize the potential that they have in themselves and pull it out right now in this time of need. What do I have in here that I can pull out and still be productive, still have purpose, still wake up every morning, do my job, feel great, and move past this?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are people that have maybe an easier path to that because it's sort of part of their DNA. It's part of their sort of hustle, if you will, right? And I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it in industries where you can look at two operators in the same industry, and the take on what's going on in the last 2 weeks. One finds an innovation of how to basically repurpose existing inventory that's been sitting there and collecting dust, and the other person basically is waiting for the bank to allow them to do the stimulus or the loans. The muscle, as you put it, and I think that's the perfect way for it. I refer to it the same way. That muscle is something you have to exercise, and if you have not exercised it in the past because you haven't had to, you are now faced with a situation that I don't know that you even have the option, but to some degree or the other, exercise this. And it could be a great adventure and a great opportunity, to your point, of looking internal and basically trying to elevate that part of you that maybe has been somewhat dormant. Like, you know, instead of saying, I can't, or, you know, I don't think it's possible or whatever, I've been telling people, this is a time to say, why not? Like, why not? Why not? Right? Because the cost of why not right now is very controlled. You're in your home. You're not applying monies and resources beyond a certain, you know, measurable risk, if you will. And you can actually explore that range today if you can get your head in that mindset, if you can get your head in that space. I know you basically have also you posted something about your a new program under Rise Up, right? You did that about a week or so ago. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, to your point about success, because that's the secret, right? Everybody wants to know what makes some people successful and others not, right? And per se, let's say we have two people that have the exact same degrees, the exact same education, the exact same experience, but we see one that's just completely ahead of the game. And why is that? And so to your point, when we look at people that are successful, we find that there are three things that they have. The first is community. So a group of people or a tribe around themselves that is like-minded, or even better, right? More experience that they can grow from and collectively get to that next level. Right. And, you know, Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Like, we've all heard that. But community is super important to helping you elevate your success, because it can leverage you personally, professionally. It can support you. There's just energies affect your productivity. The second thing is confidence, right? And so this is where we talk about right now is who's taking action and who's sitting back. And it has to do with growth mindset. You know, so fixed mindset of being able to say, I can't learn this technology. I don't have the skills for this. I don't have the capacity to learn all this technology, as a baby boomer or as, Generation X or millennial or whatever. And then growth mindset that says, it doesn't matter, how sucky I am in the beginning, I'm going to learn it anyways, because this is what I have to do. And I believe in my ability to grow. Right.
Oh, and also be able to hold on to some successes. Like basically if you go, for example, you have always wanted to either get that sort of technology additional training or get familiar with a particular software, or even maybe get some more certifications, either maybe in different states, for example, like you're a loan officer or something of that nature, right? Yeah. Expanding your own personal growth in a professional capacity, or maybe even a personal capacity. Maybe it's something that you've been interested in and you didn't feel like you could really take the risk of not pursuing that, right? I mean, a perfect example is somebody who's older. We talk about people with encore careers, that in an encore career situation, you're able to pursue something that may be more of a passion pursuit than just purely a financial justification for doing it. Here's an opportunity that you may be able to do that. It may open doors for you that you have basically been putting on the back burner, right? So this time right now could be very much one that opens up sides to yourself, allows you to pursue certain things that make you a better fit for whatever it is that you do, whether professionally, your relationships is an opportunity to, with all the list of things that you basically listed that have to do in the course of a day, there's also a need for, I have a feeling from an interior design perspective is that we're going to be doing a lot of rooms that have sound installation because people have realized that they need a place to go scream, when they're basically dealing with their kids 24/7 and they can't hand them over to the teacher. And, that probably the wine cellars in homes will become a big thing because people will want to stock them with alcohol probably after this. I mean, it's interesting. It's going to have an effect on everything. And I know I'm being facetious, but your life as it was, quote unquote, was driven by what we got accustomed to. And all of a sudden, and this is the fascinating thing for me, is it's not by country, it's not by county, it's by globe. We've all been now basically put in a situation where we have to challenge that which we considered the normal way we lived our lives.
Yeah.
No, and I'm kind of excited of what could come out of that, because what I've also noticed in the last 2 weeks, and I'm sure you even more so in what you're doing, is that I've been fascinated by how quick people have pivoted.
Yeah.
Like it's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks.
They have no choice, right? And again, I think this goes back to that career resilience. It's like, I'm either going to pivot or I'm not, and I'm going to see the effects of it, the drastic effects of it, And so, and again, I think that this is the thing that's going to come out of this is people are going to recognize the potential that they have and that they can grow and that they do have the ability. Going back to what we were talking about in regards to success, I was going to say that third element is having a strategy. And I think that this is where we're seeing people exercise that creative muscle, is like, what is my new strategy? So what's my new strategy for generating leads? What's my new strategy for getting my message out there? What's my new strategy for, reconnecting with past clients, potential prospects? What's my strategy now that's going to help me in 6 months from now? Because even if you're not feeling the effects today, or if you are feeling the effects today, we're still going to see it in 6 months from now.
Oh yeah, right? They're talking about just on the medical side of things. They're talking about the fact that we're looking at, this is going to be with us for a couple of years. I mean, they're running similarities to 1918 and the Spanish flu in that this is going to be in certain areas something that not necessarily to the same degree, and we'll get better in how we handle it. But this is something that is not going to be going away. So think about everything that we do, like cities that are now requiring that you wear masks everywhere, right? I mean, that's going to be with us for a while, right? That whole layer of hygiene is now with us for a longer period of time, right? Even, we tend to be a very short memory species in many cases. However, now we are looking at possibly a 90-day, and the old adage of if you do something for 30 days, it becomes a new habit. But we're going to be 3 times as long that we're going to be forced to basically do things differently. Yeah. Who knows how many people are going to negotiate in their new contracts with companies that they want to stay and work out at home 3 out of 5 days of the week.
100%. Oh, it's coming. It's
Right.
coming.
My quality of life, my relationship with my family is now less strained. I want more balance in my life. I mean, and if you're a resource that a company wants, and they haven't basically necessarily offended you by how they have dealt with you during this downturn, because that's the other thing too. A lot of companies, I think, the way they're going about things, if you're foolish, you're going to possibly damage your brand and your standing
100%.
with your place, right?
100%. And this is something that we just talked about in the webinar this morning, is like, this is a really great opportunity to show like what kind of leader, what kind of company you are, and how you're building these relationships with your team members and maintaining the respect and the integrity with your team members. And something that this is doing right now is it's really helping us redefine what success is. And, I could talk, another 5 hours about well-being and in the United States and what that looks like in comparison to other first world countries. But a lot of times we define ourselves by the job title, the income, the car, the socioeconomic status, the external things, social reputation. And a lot of those things aren't existing right now. And as professionals and as individuals that are in the workspace, we need to be able to adjust to that and figure out, what am I now? What's my identity now while I'm at home in this self-isolation? Because I'm not getting in my car. I'm not making the same amount of money potentially. I don't have all these external things that usually define us and drive us forward.
The biggest example of that, that's almost like it's right in front of us, but it took me a while to see it, is, have you noticed how much of a drop there has been in selfies on the internet?
Oh,
like and influencers, like okay, I can't go to an opening of something. I can't go to the launch of something. I can't go to the retail store that basically has a special, something going on, and a stop and repeat. What happened to the stop and repeat industry in this downturn? I mean, I'd like to see what those numbers look like, because who has bought a stop and repeat in the last, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, And now, having said that, I had somebody who I interviewed, and I dropped the episode, I think, yesterday, in time for Easter. These guys basically had an Easter, they were seasonal business. They did Easter hunts, they did Christmas, meet Santa situations. And there were physical setups and props and all that good stuff, right? Here comes COVID-19. Their whole Easter contracts go out the window. They panic over 2 days, speaking to the hustle and the sort of the growth mindset. They basically panic, insomnia for 2 days, which I guess insomnia, for anybody who's had insomnia, it could be a productive thing sometimes. So insomnia, and they come up with this thing where it's like, hey, put a white sheet on the wall, stand your kid in front of it or seat them on a chair, take a picture of them, send it to us. We'll Photoshop them with the Easter bunny in an Easter setting, and you'll have an Easter card. Okay. They teamed up with somebody who has access to 30 malls. And basically now they cut me off on my interview because they had so much work within a period of 72 hours after the meltdown, because they basically pivoted, and it set them on a path that was never part of their business model, that now opened up a totally different path. And I was saying somebody earlier today, and as a result of that, they now are hiring graphic artists all over that basically are out of a job. So it literally, I don't want to say trickle down, but it literally has a ripple effect across multiple things. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know that we're going to end up with as many people maybe going back into the workforce the way that we had. We may have some innovations that come out of this, which has happened in every case of human history, that is revolutionary, evolutionary at the very least. Corporate culture, by definition, is going to be different. The work environment. I mean, I laugh at all the, at all the WeWorks and all that stuff that we basically, built up, and to the point of, there was way too much of it. That may very well become more extra realist commercial real estate that is now basically a glut on the market.
100%. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is absolutely going to redefine not only the personal space, but the professional workspace as well. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen here in the next couple months. But I mean, to your point, I think that one thing that we can definitely do is stay open during this time, because, the individuals that you were just speaking to in regards to the photography business with the Easter Bunny, if their mind is cluttered with fear, scarcity, they become crippled and overwhelmed with what they're going to do next, that creativity can't come in and flood in. And so one thing that I really encourage everybody to do is try to create that space where you can bring in new ideas and new thoughts, and don't allow yourself to become crippled by fear. You know, even if there is fear in regards to finances, of where my business is going to be, how am I going to pay, do your best to stay grounded and level so that you can think properly and you have the space and the capacity to bring in new innovative ideas.
You know, the funny thing about that aspect of it, like that sense of worry because your resources are limited, it's kind of actually interesting. It depends on, you know, if you look at it from this other side of the coin, right? If you look at it from the other side of the coin, there's a certain amount of equity in what's been going on. Like, you're not the only one that's in this situation. More likely than not, there are more people in your situation than that are not, right? So it's one of the things I saw somebody was doing a write-up, almost as if they were writing it from the perspective of writing it in 2025. I saw that yesterday. And one of the first thing that was on there, which I thought was fascinating, we're already writing as if it's 2025 within less than 3 weeks of this thing going on. You know, we move at the speed of light. So the one of the first things that was on there is that it would basically lead to economic equity. And I thought that was a very interesting way to look at this, because to your point, you know, I'm not driving my car. Nobody's really seeing me in front of my business and, you know, fancy new storefront or God not, you know, whatever new thing that I basically, shiny object that I basically just attach myself to, right? Nobody's seeing that right now. So how do you evaluate and value people right now? And it may be that we are doing it on things that are more meaningful, that are more core, that are more foundational, right? Because all that noise and clutter is now gone.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's right. And we are seeing that. We're seeing people, the positive thing is that we are seeing a group of people that are starting to shift and look at these things that are not extrinsic, they're intrinsic, right? Or internal in their, or in themselves. And then we also see the flip. We also see people that are struggling because they're trying to figure out what that means, right? And it's a mirror that you're just staring at 24/7 of like, what am I doing?
Which is scary as heck for somebody who hasn't done it for the first time. When you do that,
Absolutely.
you know, you take that brutal moral inventory of yourself, and you're looking at that mirror. You know, I joke. I'm reminded by a thing from Mike Myers' Love Guru, where he basically is doing acronyms out of words, and you know, he says guru is, you know, GURU, but then there's one that says that's his take on intimacy, and he says, into me I see.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So into me I see. Intimacy with yourself sometimes can be a really scary situation, and now you're on top of that. Now you have to have better relationship with the people that you're sharing space with, that you can't leave for 8 hours and come back. And you know, it's a very fascinating, I think, like I wonder how this is going to be written about. Like, you know, is this, it could very well be a paradigm shift in how societally we relate to one another, really.
Written, movies, all kinds of things are going to come out of this. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, people are playing poker on multiplayer games online and basically talking trash and, you know, to one another on Zoom. Okay, people are having dinners with one another or watching movies together, and then basically, you know, talking about the movie and shushing each other because they're trying to watch it. I mean, it's really funny how this happens so quickly, and at the end of the day, really the spotlighting and the highlighting of what is really foundational that we would have probably never really done. Like it was a choice. It was a luxury. It was something that we would take time to maybe engage in. Oh, I'm going to go do some self-actualization. I'm going to do some self-growth, right? You're right now thrown into a situation where if you are in tune somewhat, it is not a choice. Like, this is what you have to do right now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is as well, to couple that, is for such a long time, there were so many individuals that talked so much nay about technology. So now we're also seeing a different tone when it comes to technology, where so many individuals like, oh, technology is doing this, it's destroying our minds, it's creating more depression.
Take jobs away, AI, AR, yeah.
right? And now in this pandemic, I mean, for many, technology is a lifesaver. It's a way to connect with people around the world. It's a way to get your message and your business out there. It's a way to talk to your family because you can't see them even if they live 2 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, the reframing of everything that's happening is very interesting overall.
Well, and how can you, I mean, I'm just going to kind of go off a little bit of a tangent. How can you come out of this where everything has become so, like, not necessarily leveling the playing field, although there's a bit of that that's going on right now too, but sort of this more of an equity thing, like whether you have whatever it is that you're driving, or whether you are living in, whether you're living in a huge home or a small apartment, it doesn't matter. You're both sequestered. And at some point, you basically, doesn't matter whether it's 5,000 square feet or 500 square feet, I'm bored out of my skull and I'm bouncing off the walls, right? It's just bigger bounce or a smaller bounce. So with that being the case, and we come out of this, it's going to be interesting to see whether we as a culture, as a race, as a whatever you want to put it, society, if we are going to have a more of an embracing of diversity, more of an embracing of different levels, you know, if some of that sort of like airs of depending on socioeconomic levels is at the very least for a certain period of time not going to be a driving definer of people. It's going to be interesting if that happens, because right now, like, seriously, it doesn't matter. It could be a 25,000 square foot house and you're basically sleeping in silk pajamas, or somebody basically sleeping in their Targets and living in a 500 square foot, you know, not even a one bedroom, a studio, right? Everybody's got Netflix. Everybody's got Zoom, right? Everybody has about the same opportunity to basically make a name for themselves and showcase what they are really substantially made of, right? There's, you know, in many cases, before you were competing with the noise, I mean, any of us that are basically in any kind of service business, you're competing with all the noise and all the people out there, and you're screaming over everybody else. You're trying to find a different messaging to get out there. Right now, you have a captive audience.
Yeah.
That has nothing but time on its hands, and depending on the messaging and you go about it, and I've seen some people basically be very insensitive right now in the way that they're basically business developing. It's like you have to have an empathy. There has to be a humility. There has to be a, what can I do for you, if you will, approach. We are all in this together, and if you're a smart business person, that should be the tone that you're projecting.
Yeah, I mean, we got to have compassion. You know, compassion is really key right now, because we've never seen something like this that's on a human level, like you were saying earlier.
Global,
right?
Global, yeah.
This is like all humanity. So it's not, you know, just New York that was isolated with the 9/11 industry many years ago. It's not a certain region that's been hit by Mother Nature. Like, this is all humanity across the globe is being impacted by this. And if you're smart, as you mentioned, as a business owner or as a company, you're going to have compassion, because you're going to realize that everybody is in a different place. Now, I heard somebody say this the other day that I thought was brilliant. We're all in this together, but we're not necessarily in the same boat, right? Some of us have different boats that we're in, you know, some are a little bit smaller, some are a little broken down, some are a little bit bigger, but we're all in this huge sea or huge ocean that we're trying to navigate through.
You know, Nada, if you're a one location business or one person business right now, you have as much risk, if you will, and maybe even less risk, to be honest, than somebody who's a multinational. A multinational in the past could actually defer its risk from areas that are impacted to areas that are being lucrative and thriving. And that would carry the company or the multinational through the difficult time in a particular part of the world, because other offices were basically doing just fine. Right now, none of it is basically spared. Nobody is not touched by this in one form or the other, right? And then add to that the layer of the fact that your primary relationships are now strained. You can't go see, I mean, I can't go see my elderly parents because I don't want to really put them at risk, even though they're 6 miles away. You know, how do you negotiate these relationships? How do you develop new forms of communication that still provide the closeness and the intimacy, if you will?
Right. Well, we're all about human skills, right? And so we want to have that engagement. And so that's why strategically I'm not doing it automated, because like, I want to see you. I want to talk with you. I want you to hop on a Zoom session where you can see other people and where they're coming from and who they are and what they do. And that's part of the human skills that so many of us need to build, and that we're trying to continuously build and foster in individuals and in workplaces.
I'll tell you, when I went out on my own about, oh gosh, probably about 20 plus years ago, I worked in a corporate environment, and I worked in a very high creativity corporate environment where people literally sponged off each other. Right? When you were basically having the equivalent of a writer's block on a design project, you walked around with a cup of coffee, and people's energy just basically, you thrived on that energy because it was all around. When I went out on my own, the hardest thing was the fact that you did not have that built-in system of both support and sort of inspiration, and where you would go basically to work through some of the stuff that you may be facing that was intrinsically provided for you in a corporate environment. And so it took me a while to realize that was the case. And once you did, you have to build kind of your own. So what you're doing by providing that access to people, connecting people, making it in real time, face to face, is going to help people transition that have not been in that environment before, because that was really literally like on a depression level or a hardship level, that was probably the hardest thing to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. And that's, our mission is to serve humanity, period. And we're not going to let any pandemic stop that. So that's what we're doing.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, my friend. I appreciate you being out there and doing this. And yes, send me the link. I'll share it.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, go to riseup4you.com. You'll probably find a link to that new program there, along with other resources that Nada has put on. And I'll check in with you in about a week or so. Let's see where we're at. We'll do a little litmus test of how we're doing as a society, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Nada, very much.
Of
you
course.
have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Be safe. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.